My name is Madison, and at 36, I never expected to hear that doorbell again. Standing in my $18 million Beverly Hills mansion, successful founder of a cybersecurity empire I built from nothing, I froze. 15 years of family exile had left scars that wealth couldn't heal. Through the security camera, I saw them all waiting outside, their faces a mixture of awe and desperation. The family that once threw me away had come crawling back. Tell me where you're watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button before we dive into how I watched the color drain from their faces when they realized what was coming. Growing up in a middle-class suburb of Denver, my childhood should have been ordinary. My father, Robert, worked as a mechanical engineer at Lockheed Martin, bringing home a comfortable six-figure salary. My mother, Catherine, taught fourth grade at the local elementary school, beloved by her students and the community. From the outside, we appeared to be the perfect American family, living in a 5-bedroom ranch house with a manicured lawn and a golden retriever named Max. But appearances can be deceiving. I was the youngest of 3 children. My brother Tyler was 7 years older, the golden boy who excelled at everything he touched: basketball scholarships, straight A's, and a charming personality that made everyone gravitate toward him. My sister Brittany, 5 years my senior, was the beauty of the family, with her perfect auburn curls and dazzling smile. She was a talented violinist and student body president. And then there was me, the afterthought. From my earliest memories, I felt the difference in how I was treated. While my siblings received praise and attention for their achievements, mine were met with indifference or criticism. When I brought home straight A's, my mother would merely nod and say, "That's what we expect." When Tyler or Brittany brought home the same grades, there would be celebrations and trips to Chuck E. Cheese. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" my mother would ask when I struggled with violin lessons. "Brittany was playing Bach at your age." My father was no better. He attended every single one of Tyler's basketball games, cheering from the stands and boasting to his colleagues about his son's athletic prowess. But when I qualified for the state science fair in 5th grade, he claimed he was too busy with work to attend. "Science isn't really a spectator sport, Madison," he said dismissively. "Besides, I have an important project deadline." I later discovered he had rescheduled that deadline to watch Tyler's scrimmage game. My 10th birthday was the clearest example of where I stood in the family hierarchy. Mom had promised a small party at our house with a few friends from school. I had been looking forward to it for weeks, even helping to make the invitations by hand. The morning of my birthday, I woke up early, excited for the celebration. "Madison, there's been a change of plans," my mother announced over breakfast. "Tyler has a championship game today, and we all need to be there to support him. We'll have to reschedule your party." My heart sank as I realized what was happening. "But Mom, my friends are coming in 2 hours. We can't cancel now." "Don't be selfish," my father interjected. "This is a big day for your brother. Family comes first." Family comes first. That phrase would haunt me for years to come, especially when I realized it never seemed to apply when I was the one who needed support. The party was hastily canceled. I called each friend while fighting back tears, explaining that we would have to celebrate another time. Then I was dragged to Tyler's basketball game, where I sat in the bleachers for 3 hours, forgotten as my parents cheered and my sister socialized with her friends who had also come to watch. No one sang happy birthday that day. No one mentioned it at all. When we got home, there was no cake, no presents, just leftover Domino's pizza from the celebration for Tyler's winning game. I ate alone in my room, tears silently falling onto my plate. Brittany was perhaps the cruelest. As a young teenager, when I was still in elementary school, she found ways to torment me psychologically. She would invite friends over and then exclude me from their activities, locking me out of rooms or speaking in whispers that stopped the moment I entered. She borrowed my things without asking and returned them damaged, if at all. When I complained to our parents, she would put on an innocent face. "Madison's just being dramatic again," she would say, and they would believe her. Tyler wasn't actively mean, just indifferent. As the big brother, he could have protected me from Brittany's bullying, but he chose to stay out of it. He lived in his own world of sports and popularity, too busy to notice the quiet suffering of his little sister. The only person who showed me genuine love was my grandmother Grace, my mother's mother. Grandma Grace lived an hour away in Colorado Springs and visited once a month. During those visits, I felt seen for the first time. "You have a special spark, Madison," she would tell me as we baked chocolate chip cookies together in the kitchen. "One day, the world will see what I see in you." She brought me books because she noticed how much I loved to read, unlike my parents, who viewed my reading habit as antisocial. She attended my science fairs and school performances, sitting in the front row and beaming with pride. With Grandma Grace, I didn't have to compete for attention or love. It was freely given. In school, I excelled academically. My teachers praised my intelligence and creativity. But at home, these accomplishments were minimized. "Book smarts will only get you so far in life," my father would say when I showed him my report card. "You need to develop social skills like your sister if you want to succeed." I tried to join clubs and activities to win their approval. I signed up for debate team like Brittany, but when I advanced to regionals, my parents were too busy to attend. I tried out for soccer, hoping my father might show the same enthusiasm he did for Tyler's sports. But when I made the team, he merely commented that girls' sports weren't as competitive as boys. By the time I reached high school, I had resigned myself to being invisible in my own family. I focused on my studies, knowing that education was my ticket to freedom. I worked part-time at Barnes & Noble, saving every dollar for college. I applied for scholarships in secret, determined to forge my own path. When acceptance letters came from top universities, including MIT and Caltech, my parents seemed surprised, as if they had never considered that I might be capable of such achievements. Their reaction was tepid at best. "Those schools are very expensive," was my father's first comment, "and very far from home." I detected a note of relief in his voice at the thought of my leaving. It confirmed what I had always suspected. I was an obligation, not a beloved daughter. My heart broke a little more that day, but it also strengthened my resolve to build a life where I would be valued. Little did I know then that the worst betrayal was yet to come, and that the true nature of my place in the family would be revealed in the cruelest way possible. The pivotal moment that shattered any remaining illusions about my family came when I was 21. I had graduated from MIT with honors, earning a computer science degree with a specialization in artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. I had secured a job at a tech startup in Silicon Valley, my first step toward independence. I was starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could finally earn my family's respect through my achievements. Then came the call that Grandma Grace had passed away unexpectedly from a stroke. I was devastated. The one person who had made me feel loved and valued was gone. I flew back to Denver immediately for the funeral, my heart heavy with grief. The funeral was a somber affair, with relatives I barely knew, offering condolences and sharing memories of my grandmother. Throughout the service, I sat alone in the front row, while my parents, Tyler and Brittany, huddled together, presenting a united front of family grief. No one thought to check if I was okay, despite knowing how close I had been to Grandma Grace. After the service, the family gathered at my parents' house. The reading of the will was scheduled for that afternoon. I sat quietly in the corner of the living room, leafing through a photo album of Grandma Grace, trying to process my loss. When the lawyer arrived, everyone gathered in the dining room. As he read through the will, most items and assets were distributed as expected. Grandma Grace's house went to my mother, her car to Tyler, and her jewelry collection to Brittany. Then came the surprise. "To my beloved granddaughter Madison," the lawyer read, "I leave my grandmother's sapphire ring and the sum of $8,000. You are always special to me, and I know you will make me proud." The room fell silent. Then my mother let out a scoff. $8,000 and her old ring. That's it. I was stunned by her reaction. I hadn't expected anything, and was deeply touched by Grandma Grace's gesture. The sapphire ring was a family heirloom that had belonged to my great-great-grandmother. It wasn't the monetary value that mattered to me, but the sentiment behind it. My father's face had turned an alarming shade of red. "This is outrageous," he sputtered. "Grace always did favor Madison. For some reason. For some reason? I echoed, finding my voice. Maybe because she was the only one who ever showed me any kindness in this family. That was when everything exploded. Years of resentment and secrets came pouring out. "You want to talk about kindness?" my father shouted. "We took you in when no one else would. We give you a home and education, opportunities most kids could only dream of. And this is the gratitude we get?" Confusion washed over me. "Took me in? What are you talking about?" My mother shot my father a warning look, but it was too late. The damage was done. "You're not even our daughter," he spat out. "You were 3 years old when we adopted you after your mother died. Lisa was Catherine's college roommate, had you out of wedlock, then got herself killed in a drunk driving accident. No father in the picture, no other family willing to take you. So we did, out of the goodness of our hearts." The room spun around me. Adopted. This couldn't be real. I looked at my mother, silently pleading for her to deny it. Instead, she sighed. "We were going to tell you when you were older, but then it never seemed like the right time. 21 years, and it had never been the right time to tell me the truth about my own identity. All those years of feeling like I didn't belong, like I was different somehow, suddenly made terrible sense." "So I've been living a lie my entire life?" I whispered. "Does everyone know except me?" "Most of the family knows," Brittany said with a shrug. "It wasn't exactly a secret. We just didn't talk about it. Not a secret to anyone except me, the person whose life it was." I felt sick to my stomach. "Why did Grandma Grace leave the ring to Madison anyway?" Tyler asked the lawyer. "It should stay with blood family." Blood family. Those words cut through me like a knife. "Mrs. Grace specifically mentioned that Madison should have the ring because, in her words, true family is about love, not blood," the lawyer replied uncomfortably. That set my father off again. That old woman always did try to undermine our parenting, filling Madison's head with nonsense, making her think she was special when we were trying to raise her to be realistic about her place in the world. "My place?" I asked, my voice rising. "And what exactly is my place in this family? You should be grateful we took you in at all," Brittany interjected. "Do you know how many orphans end up in the system? You had privileges most of them could only dream of." I looked at my sister, seeing her clearly for the first time. Privileges like being reminded constantly that I wasn't as good as you or Tyler? Like having my birthdays forgotten and my achievements ignored? Those kinds of privileges? "See, this is exactly why we never told you," my mother said. "We knew you would react emotionally instead of rationally." "Finding out my entire life has been a lie seems like a reasonable thing to be emotional about," I retorted. My father stood up, towering over the table. "That's enough. I won't have you speaking to your mother that way under my roof. If you can't show some gratitude for everything we've done for you, then perhaps you should leave." I looked around the table, at the faces of the people I had called family for 21 years. None of them came to my defense. Not even Tyler, who had always been the least antagonistic toward me. In that moment, I made my decision. "Fine," I said quietly, gathering my purse. "I'll go. But first, I want to know one thing. Was anything real? Did you ever love me at all? Or was I just a charity case you regretted taking on?" The silence that followed was all the answer I needed. I walked out of that house and never looked back. The exclusion from family life became official after that day. I wasn't invited to Thanksgiving that year, or Christmas, or any family gathering that followed. I saw photos on social media of family reunions, holiday celebrations, and milestone events, all without me. Brittany would occasionally post pictures with captions like, "Complete family gathering," or "So blessed to have everyone I love in one place." Pointed reminders that I wasn't considered part of everyone. There were emails from my father, cold and formal, asking me not to contact them and to respect the family's privacy. As if I were some stranger who might harass them. Not someone who had lived as their daughter for over 2 decades. The ultimate pain came when I saw photos of my parents proudly attending Tyler's wedding and later the birth of Brittany's first child. Moments I should have been part of, erased from the family narrative as thoroughly as if I had never existed. With the $8,000 from Grandma Grace and her sapphire ring as my only inheritance, I cut all ties and vowed to build a life so successful that they would one day regret throwing me away. Little did I know just how dramatically that vow would be fulfilled. With just $8,000 to my name and a sapphire ring I vowed never to sell, I arrived in San Francisco, determined to forge a new beginning. The money wouldn't last long in one of America's most expensive cities, so I had to be strategic. I found a tiny apartment in the Mission District, sharing with two other young women I found through Craigslist. My portion of the rent consumed nearly half of my savings immediately. Sarah was a nurse working night shifts at UCSF, and Kim was a graduate student in psychology at Berkeley. Both were too busy with their own lives to pry into mine, which suited me perfectly. The apartment was cramped, with just enough space for a twin bed and a small desk in my room. The kitchen was barely functional, and we shared one bathroom between the three of us. It was a far cry from the comfortable suburban home I had grown up in, but it was mine, and there was freedom in that. I secured an entry-level job as a technical support specialist at a small software company in Soma. The pay was minimal, barely covering my expenses, but it was a foot in the door of the tech industry. My days consisted of answering calls from frustrated users, troubleshooting basic problems, and documenting issues for the development team. It was mundane work that didn't utilize my education or skills, but I approached it with determination. "You're overqualified for this position," my supervisor remarked during my 3-month review, "but I appreciate your work ethic. Keep it up, and there will be opportunities for advancement." I didn't want to wait for gradual advancement. Each night after my shift ended, I would return to my tiny room and spend hours teaching myself additional programming languages and cybersecurity protocols. I enrolled in free online courses on Coursera and edX, participated in coding challenges on HackerRank, and built small projects to enhance my portfolio. Sleep became a luxury I could rarely afford, but every hour of work was an investment in my future. To save money, I lived on top ramen and peanut butter sandwiches. I cut my own hair, shopped at Goodwill for clothes, and walked miles to avoid paying for BART or Muni when the weather permitted. Every dollar saved was a dollar that could keep me independent from the family that had rejected me. 6 months into my self-imposed exile, I attended a free tech workshop at the San Francisco Public Library. The topic was emerging threats in cybersecurity, an area I had been focusing on in my studies. The presenter was Dr. Jennifer Liu, a renowned expert in the field from Stanford. I sat in the back row, absorbing every word of her presentation, taking detailed notes on concepts I wanted to research further. When the formal presentation ended and the crowd began to disperse, I gathered my courage and approached her with a specific question about machine learning applications in threat detection she had mentioned. Dr. Liu looked surprised by the technical nature of my question. "That's an insightful observation," she said. "Most people wouldn't have caught that nuance. Are you working in the field?" I explained my background and current situation, carefully omitting the personal details about my family. Something about Dr. Liu's kind eyes and attentive listening made me feel seen, in a way I hadn't experienced since Grandma Grace. "You have a good mind for this work," she said after our conversation. "I'm hosting a hackathon next month at Stanford. You should come." That hackathon changed the trajectory of my career. Working with a team of strangers, I helped identify a significant vulnerability in a popular banking application. Our solution won second place, and, more importantly, caught the attention of several industry professionals. Dr. Liu became my unofficial mentor, inviting me to additional events and recommending resources to further my education. "You have a unique perspective on security," she told me after I shared some of my ideas. "You see vulnerabilities others miss because you think differently." Under her guidance, I began developing a concept for a new approach to data protection, one that used behavioral biometrics and AI pattern recognition rather than traditional password systems. The idea had potential, but turning it into a viable product would require resources I didn't have. "You should consider seeking investors," Dr. Liu suggested. This concept could revolutionize personal data security. The world of venture capital and startup funding was completely foreign to me. I spent weeks researching, preparing a business plan, and practicing my pitch. Dr. Liu introduced me to a few of her contacts, but the responses were lukewarm at best. The concept is interesting, but you have no track record. Come back when you have a working prototype. We typically invest in founders with more experience. Rejection after rejection piled up. 32 investors turned me down, each dismissal echoing the rejections I had faced from my family. But unlike then, I refused to accept that I wasn't good enough. To sustain myself financially while pursuing my vision, I took a second job, bartending at a popular tech hangout in Soma. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was serving craft cocktails to successful entrepreneurs whose ranks I was desperate to join. The late-night shifts were exhausting after full days at my tech support job, but they provided additional income and, unexpectedly, networking opportunities. One night, a customer named Marcus left a generous tip after we had a brief conversation about the future of digital privacy. He returned the following week and asked more questions about my background and ideas. After several such conversations, he revealed that he was an angel investor specializing in cybersecurity startups. "I've been testing you," he admitted, "seeing if you really know your stuff, or if you're just another person with big talk and no substance. You're the real deal. Let me see your business plan." 2 weeks later, I received an investment of $250,000 to develop a prototype of my security system. It was a fraction of what established startups typically received, but it was enough to quit my tech support job and focus on building my product. I kept the bartending gig on weekends, both for extra cash and to stay grounded. The development process was grueling. I rented a small office space in a converted warehouse and worked 16 to 18-hour days, 7 days a week. There were technical challenges I hadn't anticipated, requiring me to learn new skills on the fly. There were moments of doubt when the code wouldn't work or when a security protocol failed testing. During those dark moments, I would hold Grandma Grace's sapphire ring and remember her words. "You have a special spark, Madison." The loneliness was perhaps the most difficult aspect. While I had acquaintances like Dr. Liu and my roommates, I had no close friends, no one to celebrate small victories with or to provide comfort during setbacks. I had built walls around myself after the betrayal by my family, afraid to let anyone close enough to hurt me again. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, exhausted and overwhelmed. Nights when I questioned if I was on a fool's errand, trying to prove my worth to people who had made it clear they didn't care. But each morning, I would get up and return to my code, driven by a determination that grew stronger with each obstacle overcome. After 10 months of development, I had a working prototype. It was rough around the edges, but demonstrated the core functionality of my security concept. Marcus arranged a demonstration for a group of more established investors, and this time they were impressed. "This approach to behavioral authentication is genuinely innovative," one of them commented. "With the right refinement, this could be a game changer for consumer security." That demonstration secured an additional round of funding, enough to hire 4 employees and move to a proper office space. Secure Vault was officially born, and with it the first step toward building the empire that would one day make my family regret their decision to cast me aside. The launch of Secure Vault's first commercial product exceeded even my most optimistic projections. Our behavioral authentication system caught the attention of several major tech publications, with TechCrunch calling it a revolutionary approach to personal data security in an increasingly vulnerable digital landscape. Within 8 months, we had licensing agreements with 5 Fortune 500 companies who wanted to integrate our technology into their products. As the company grew, so did my confidence. I expanded from our small office to a full floor in a downtown San Francisco building. My team of 4 grew to 20, then 50, then over 150 employees within 3 years. Each hire was carefully selected not just for their technical skills, but for their passion and integrity. I was building more than a company. I was creating the family I had never had. "You've created something special here," Dr. Liu remarked during a visit to our new offices. She had transitioned from mentor to friend, one of the few people who knew the truth about my past. And I don't just mean the technology. She was right. The culture at Secure Vault was built on respect, collaboration, and recognition of achievements large and small. Every milestone was celebrated, every birthday acknowledged. I made sure no one ever felt invisible or unappreciated the way I had for so many years. Our second product, a secure communication platform that used our proprietary authentication system, attracted attention from government agencies and international corporations concerned about industrial espionage. The contracts that followed pushed Secure Vault's valuation past $150 million just 4 years after our founding. Financial success brought changes to my personal life as well. I moved from my shared apartment to a luxury penthouse in Pacific Heights. I replaced my thrift store wardrobe with designer clothes, not out of vanity, but because I learned that in the business world, appearance matters. When seeking to be taken seriously, I traded my 10-year-old laptop for cutting-edge technology and my BART pass for a Tesla Model S. Yet despite these material improvements, there remained an emptiness I couldn't fill. Each night, I would return to my beautiful but silent penthouse with its panoramic views and expensive furnishings and feel utterly alone. Success was a cold companion. On the 6th anniversary of Secure Vault's founding, we secured our biggest deal yet. A $300 million contract to overhaul the security infrastructure for a consortium of international banks. The celebration at the office was jubilant, with champagne flowing and employees cheering as I announced bonuses for everyone. But when the party ended and everyone went home to their families, I returned alone to my penthouse and opened a bottle of wine. As I sipped my drink on the balcony, I found myself scrolling through social media, a habit I had mostly broken, but occasionally indulged in moments of weakness. There was a new post from Brittany. A family reunion at our parents' lake house. Annual Martinez family tradition. So blessed to have everyone together. Everyone except me, of course. I closed the app and made a decision. If I couldn't have the family I was born into, I would create a life so full and meaningful that their absence would no longer matter. The next day, I began looking for a permanent home, somewhere that could become my sanctuary. After weeks of searching, I found a sprawling estate in Beverly Hills, the most exclusive neighborhood in Los Angeles. The $18 million property featured a main house with 8 bedrooms, a guest house, a pool, and extensive gardens on 4 acres of land. "Are you sure about this purchase?" my financial advisor asked. "It's a significant investment for a single person." "I'm sure," I replied. "This isn't just a house, it's a statement." I spent the next 8 months renovating the property to my exact specifications. The formal dining room was converted into a state-of-the-art home office. One wing of the house became a library, filled with thousands of books, fulfilling my childhood dream of having my own personal library, like the one in Beauty and the Beast, my favorite Disney movie growing up. Each room was carefully designed to reflect different aspects of my personality and interests. The color schemes were warm and inviting, the furniture elegant but comfortable. Unlike the stark minimalism of my San Francisco penthouse, this house was meant to be lived in, to create memories in. The crown jewel of the property was the garden. I hired a renowned landscape architect to create an English garden with winding paths, hidden benches, and year-round blooms. It was the kind of garden Grandma Grace would have loved, and I placed a small memorial bench with her name in a quiet corner, surrounded by her favorite flowers, lavender and roses. As Secure Vault continued to expand, now with over 800 employees and offices in 8 countries, I made a conscious effort to balance my professional success with personal growth. I joined boards of charitable organizations, focusing particularly on those that supported foster children and orphans. I established a scholarship fund for computer science students from disadvantaged backgrounds. I began mentoring young women entering the tech field, determined to help them avoid some of the obstacles I had faced. Through these activities, I slowly built a circle of friends who knew nothing about my past and accepted me for who I was now. There was Marcus, my first investor, who had become a trusted advisor and weekend sailing companion. Dr. Liu, of course, remained a constant presence, now bringing her husband and children to regular dinners at my home. Kim, my former roommate, had finished her PhD and now practiced as a clinical psychologist. We met monthly for coffee and deep conversations. There was also my executive team. Elena, my brilliant chief technology officer. David, the chief financial officer, whose careful stewardship had helped grow our company's value. And Ryan, our chief operating officer, whose organizational skills kept everything running smoothly. They had started as employees, but had become something more over the years. People I trusted and respected. This carefully constructed family of choice helped fill some of the emptiness, but there were still moments when the past would creep in. Late at night, I would sometimes find myself looking through an old photo album I had kept from my childhood, one of the few possessions I had taken when I left my parents' house. The smiling faces in those photos seemed to belong to strangers now, people I once thought loved me, but had proven otherwise. 12 years after founding SecureVault, I took the company public. The IPO was wildly successful, making me a billionaire overnight, at least on paper. My face appeared on the cover of business magazines, with headlines like, "Security Queen, How Madison Chen Built a Tech Empire from Nothing." If my biological family saw these articles, they never reached out. Their silence was both a relief and a lingering wound. On the 15th anniversary of the day I had been cast out of my family, I hosted a charity gala at my Beverly Hills estate. The event raised over $15 million for foster care organizations, a cause that had become deeply personal to me. As I stood, addressing the crowd of Silicon Valley elites, politicians, and celebrities who had paid thousands of dollars for the privilege of attending, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought me here. From a confused and hurt young woman with just $8,000 and a sapphire ring to my name, I had transformed into one of the most powerful women in tech. The mansion around me, the respect of my peers, the impact of my charitable work, all served as testimony to what I had achieved despite, or perhaps because of, being discarded by those who should have loved me most. Yet for all my success, there remained a small, wounded part of me that still wondered why I had never been enough for them. That part was about to get an unexpected answer, when the very next day, my security system alerted me to visitors at my gate. It was a quiet Sunday morning, the kind I had cherished after busy weeks of meetings and business travel. I was enjoying a cup of coffee on my terrace, still in my silk pajamas, watching hummingbirds flit around the feeders I had installed throughout the garden. The tranquility was shattered by the chime of my security system, indicating visitors at the front gate. Annoyed at the unexpected interruption, I picked up my tablet to check the security camera. What I saw made my coffee cup slip from my fingers and shatter on the stone floor. There they were, standing at my gate like ghosts from a past life. My father, Robert, now in his mid-70s, his once dark hair completely gray, his tall frame slightly stooped with age. My mother, Catherine, beside him, her face more lined than I remembered, but still wearing the same style of conservative dress she had always favored. Tyler stood slightly behind them, heavier now, his former athletic build softened by middle age. And Brittany, still immaculately dressed and groomed, her auburn hair now expertly highlighted to hide any graying, with 2 children clutching her hands. A boy who looked about 12 and a girl of perhaps 10. 15 years. 15 years of silence, of exclusion, of pretending I didn't exist. And now they were here, standing at the entrance to the life I had built without them. My first instinct was to ignore them, to let them wait at the gate until they gave up and left. But curiosity won out. What could possibly have brought them here after all this time? What could they want from me now? With trembling hands, I pressed the intercom button. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice carefully neutral. "Madison, it's Mom and Dad." My mother's voice crackled through the speaker. "And Tyler and Brittany. We were hoping we could talk to you." Talk to me? After 15 years of silence? I should have said no. I should have told him to leave and never come back. But some deeply buried part of me, that little girl who had always longed for her family's approval, made me press the button to open the gate. I rushed to my bedroom to change, pulling on jeans and a simple blouse, running a brush through my hair. I didn't want to look like I had made an effort for them, but neither did I want to appear as though their arrival had caught me off guard. By the time the doorbell rang, I had composed myself, at least outwardly. I opened the front door with what I hoped was an expression of mild interest, rather than the emotional turmoil raging inside me. The five of them stood on my doorstep, looking up at the grand facade of my home with poorly concealed awe. "Madison," my mother said, stepping forward with arms outstretched as if to embrace me. "You look wonderful." I stepped back slightly, avoiding the hug. "Thank you," I replied coolly. "This is unexpected." "We've been trying to find the right time to reach out," my father said, his voice softer than I remembered. "When we saw the article about your charity gala in Fortune magazine, we thought it might be time to reconnect." Fortune magazine, of course. They hadn't come because they missed me or regretted their actions. They had come because they had seen evidence of my wealth and success in a national publication. "Please, come in," I said, my hospitality on autopilot. Even as my mind processed this revelation, I led them through the grand foyer with its marble floors and sweeping staircase into the main living room, where floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the gardens and pool. "This is quite a home," Tyler said, whistling softly as he took in the custom furnishings and original artwork on the walls. "Thank you," I replied simply, gesturing for them to sit on the Italian leather sofas. "Can I offer you something to drink? Coffee, water?" "Coffee would be lovely," my mother said, perching on the edge of the sofa, as if afraid to fully commit to sitting in my home. I used the excuse of preparing coffee to escape to the kitchen for a moment, leaning against the counter and taking deep breaths to steady myself. I had imagined this scenario countless times over the years, fantasized about what I would say if they ever showed up in my life again. But now that it was happening, I felt unprepared, vulnerable in a way I hadn't felt in years. When I returned with a tray of coffee and my finest porcelain, a petty display of wealth I couldn't resist, the children were exploring the room while the adults sat in awkward silence. "These are my children," Brittany said as I set down the tray. "Connor and Lily." I nodded to the children, who regarded me with curious eyes. "Hello," I said, unsure how to interact with these niece and nephew I had never met. Had Brittany told them about me? Did they know they had an aunt who had been erased from family photos and conversations? "They're beautiful," I said, because it seemed like the expected response. "We've missed you, Madison," my mother said, tears welling in her eyes. The performance was almost convincing. "All these years, we've thought about you," she continued. "Have you?" I asked, my voice steady despite the anger bubbling just beneath the surface. "That's interesting, because I haven't received so much as a birthday card or a Christmas greeting in 15 years. "We didn't know how to reach out," my father said. "After the way things ended, we didn't know if you would want to hear from us." "You could have tried," I pointed out. "My email address hasn't changed. My company isn't exactly difficult to find." "We've been following your career," Tyler interjected, "reading about your success. We're all very proud." "Proud?" I repeated, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. "Now you're proud. Not when I graduated with honors, not when I started my company, not when I needed support and encouragement. Only now, when I have a mansion and a billion-dollar company. Now you're proud." An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. The children sensed the tension and moved closer to their mother, who put protective arms around them. "Madison," my father said after a moment, clearing his throat, "we didn't just come to reconnect, though that's certainly our hope. We also came because, we could use your help." And there it was, the real reason for their sudden appearance in my life. "What kind of help?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Financial help," my father admitted, having the grace to look embarrassed. "My consulting business failed last year. The market became oversaturated, and at my age, finding new employment has been challenging." "I lost my position at the marketing firm 6 months ago," Tyler added. "I've been freelancing, but it's not stable. And I'm going through a divorce. And I'm facing some financial difficulties," Brittany said, her voice dropping to ensure her children didn't hear. "James left me for his paralegal. Classic story." The settlement is still being negotiated, and my legal bills are astronomical. I looked at each of them in turn. These people who had cast me out when I had nothing and had returned now that I had everything. The audacity was breathtaking. We were thinking, my father continued, apparently mistaking my silence for consideration, that perhaps you could help us restart a family investment fund. A loan of about $3 million would allow us to reestablish ourselves and create something the whole family could be part of. The whole family, I repeated. Yes, my mother said eagerly. You could be part of it too, of course. Though I imagine you're too busy with your own company, you could be a silent partner. And it would help secure your niece and nephew's future. She gestured to the children. A calculated move to pull at heartstrings I wasn't sure I still possessed. We would pay you back, of course, my father added, with interest. And perhaps you could consider allocating some shares in your company to a family trust. Keep it all in the family, so to speak. The nausea I felt was overwhelming. The sheer nerve of them to walk into my home after 15 years of silence and ask not just for money, but for a piece of the company I had built entirely without their help or support. To speak of family, as if it were a concept that still included me when it suited their financial needs. I see, was all I said, my mind already formulating a response they would never forget. I rose from my seat with deliberate calm, smoothing the fabric of my jeans as I gathered my thoughts. The room felt charged with tension, my family watching me with expressions ranging from hope to thinly veiled calculation. Please, make yourselves comfortable, I said, with practiced hospitality. The coffee is imported from a small cooperative in Guatemala. I visited the farms myself last year. This casual mention of international travel, of the kind of lifestyle where one could personally visit coffee producers in Central America, was not lost on them. My father's eyes narrowed slightly, recalculating the extent of my wealth. Brittany glanced around the room with renewed interest, as if mentally appraising the value of each piece of furniture and artwork. I excused myself briefly and returned with a leather-bound album and my laptop, setting both on the coffee table. I resumed my seat across from them, legs crossed, posture relaxed but confident, the way I sat in board meetings when I knew I held all the cards. Before we discuss any financial arrangements, I said, my voice even, I think we should catch up on the past 15 years. After all, we are family, right? I emphasized the word family just enough to make it clear I recognize the irony. My mother nodded eagerly. Yes, of course. We have so much to catch up on. Let's start with family gatherings, I suggested, opening the album. I've been keeping track of them, you know. Their confused expressions turned to discomfort as I revealed the first page, a printed screenshot of a Facebook post from 15 years ago, shortly after our falling out. It showed a Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' house, the caption reading, "Grateful for family, today and always." This was 3 months after you told me never to contact you again, I said conversationally, as if discussing the weather. I noticed all of you were there, plus Uncle Mark and Aunt Jennifer and their children. Cousin Ashley even flew in from Seattle. I turned the page. Christmas, same year. Nothing better than having the whole family together for the holidays. That's a lovely tree, Mom. Did you use the ornaments I made in elementary school? Or did those get thrown out along with my baby pictures? Page after page, I showed them evidence of the life they had lived without me. Birthday celebrations, graduations, weddings, baby showers for Brittany's children, anniversary parties for my parents, all documented on social media, with captions about complete family gatherings and everyone we love in one place. Why do you have all these? Brittany asked, her voice strained. Know your enemy, I replied with a small smile. A basic principle of security. You taught me that, Dad. Probably the most valuable lesson you ever gave me. Always know who you're dealing with. I turned the screen toward them, showing an email from my father dated 10 years ago. I read it aloud, my voice steady. Madison, I must insist that you cease any attempts to contact family members. Your mother was very upset by your Christmas card. We have moved on with our lives and expect you to respect our privacy. Signed, Robert Martinez. I looked up at my father. That was in response to the only Christmas card I ever sent after leaving. A simple card wishing you happy holidays. No requests for reconciliation, no accusations, just a card. That was your response. He had the decency to look ashamed, staring down at his hands. And this, I continued, scrolling to another email, is from Brittany to her friend Jessica, which she accidentally copied me on 4 years ago. I read aloud. Ugh, saw another article about my sister, the tech genius. Mom was going on about it all day, as if being rich makes up for being such a weirdo growing up. Some people just have all the luck despite being totally antisocial. Charming, Brittany. My sister's face flushed red. I didn't mean— Oh, I think you did, I interrupted. But it's fine. Your opinion of me stopped mattering a long time ago. I closed the laptop and leaned forward, looking each of them in the eye in turn. For 15 years, you've lived your lives as if I didn't exist. You celebrated holidays, shared milestones, supported each other through hardships. You were a family in every sense of the word, just without me. And that was your choice. I stood and walked to the window, looking out at the garden I had created. At the bench dedicated to Grandma Grace, the only family member who had ever truly loved me. Now you come here. To the home I built, to the life I created entirely without your help, and you talk about family as if it's something that can be picked up and put down whenever it becomes convenient or profitable. I turned back to face them. Let me be very clear. I don't need a family that only wants me when I have something to offer them. I don't need parents who only acknowledge me when I'm successful. I don't need siblings who mock me behind my back, become asking for handouts. The color had drained from my father's face. My mother was crying silently. Whether from genuine remorse or frustration at the failure of their plan, I couldn't tell. Tyler stared at the floor, and Brittany sat rigid with anger or embarrassment, or both. That said, I continued, my voice softening slightly as I looked at the children, who appeared confused and uncomfortable. I don't believe in punishing children for the sins of their parents. I returned to my seat and addressed my niece and nephew directly. Connor, Lily, I'm your Aunt Madison. We've never met before today, but that's not your fault. I would like to get to know you both if you're interested. The children looked to their mother for guidance, uncertain how to respond to this stranger claiming to be their aunt. And to that end, I said, returning my gaze to the adults, I will not be giving you $3 million to restart a family investment fund that would likely fail again. I will not be signing over shares of my company to a family trust. What I will do is establish education funds for Connor and Lily to ensure they have the opportunity to attend any college they choose when the time comes. Brittany's expression was a complex mixture of relief, disappointment, and wounded pride. We don't need your charity, she began. It's not charity, I cut her off. It's an investment in the only innocent parties in this room. The funds will be managed by my financial team and will only be accessible for educational expenses. You will have no access to the money. I stood, signaling that the meeting was coming to an end. That's my offer. Take it or leave it. My father stood as well, his face flushed with familiar anger. After everything we did for you— What exactly did you do for me? I asked quietly. Remind me. We gave you a home when no one else would, he sputtered. We fed and clothed you, sent you to good schools. You did the legal minimum required of adoptive parents, I corrected him. And you made sure I knew every day that it was an obligation, not a choice made from love. The moment I was old enough to be cast out, you did exactly that. My mother rose, tears still streaming down her face. Madison, please, we made mistakes. We're sorry. Are you sorry for what you did, or sorry that I became successful without you? I asked. Because those are very different things. She had no answer to that. I think it's time for you to go, I said gently but firmly. My assistant will contact you regarding the education funds for the children, if you choose to accept them. Otherwise, I wish you all well in your future endeavors. I walked them to the door, maintaining my composure through sheer force of will. As they stepped outside, Brittany turned back, her expression softer than I had seen it in decades. "For what it's worth," she said quietly, "I am proud of what you've accomplished. I really am." Too little, too late, I thought, but I nodded in acknowledgement of her words. "Take care of your children, Brittany," I replied. "They deserve better than what we had." I closed the door on my past and leaned against it, finally allowing the tears to come. They weren't tears of sadness or regret, but of release. In facing my family and refusing to be manipulated by them again, I had finally freed myself from the last chains of their approval. I pulled out my phone and dialed the one person I knew would understand. "Dr. Lou, it's Madison. Can you come over? My family just left and I need a friend right now." As I waited for Dr. Lou to arrive, I looked around at the beautiful home I had created, at the life I had built from nothing but determination and the belief that I deserved better. For the first time, I truly believed that Grandma Grace would be proud of the woman I had become, not just for my success, but for finding the strength to stand up for myself. The sound of tires on the driveway announced Dr. Lou's arrival just 40 minutes after my call. One of the things I valued most about our friendship was her unfailing reliability. When I needed her, she was there, no questions asked. She found me in the garden, sitting on Grandma Grace's bench, the sapphire ring gleaming on my finger as I twisted it absently, a habit I had developed over the years when deep in thought. "Hey," she said softly, sitting beside me. "Rough day?" I smiled weakly. "You could say that." I recounted the entire encounter, from the moment I saw them on the security camera to their final departure. Dr. Liu listened without interruption, her face reflecting my own emotions as the story unfolded. $3 million and shares in your company," she repeated when I finished. "The audacity is almost impressive." That startled a laugh out of me. Right. After 15 years of radio silence, they show up expecting a handout, as if all the years of exclusion and cruelty never happened. "But you stood your ground," Dr. Liu said, squeezing my hand. "You offered help to the children without letting the adults manipulate you. That took courage." We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the garden. The emotional upheaval of the day had left me drained, but also strangely at peace. "You know what the strangest part is?" I said finally. "For years I fantasized about a moment like this, about them seeing my success and regretting how they treated me. But now that it's happened, it feels empty somehow. Their regret, if they even feel it, doesn't change anything." Dr. Liu nodded thoughtfully. "Because you've realized that their approval was never the prize you thought it was." Her words resonated with a truth I'd been slowly discovering over the years. Exactly. I spent so much of my life trying to earn love that should have been freely given. Building this company, this fortune, part of me was still that little girl trying to prove I was worthy of being loved. "And now?" Dr. Liu prompted. "Now, I know that was never the problem. Their inability to love me was their failure, not mine. No amount of success on my part could ever fix what was broken in them." In the days that followed, I experienced a range of emotions, from residual anger to unexpected grief for the family relationships I had never truly had. But beneath it all was a growing sense of liberation, the last lingering hope that they might someday acknowledge their wrongdoing, that we might somehow become a real family, had been laid to rest. That fantasy had been holding me back in ways I hadn't fully recognized. A week after their visit, I made a decision that would change the course of not just my life, but potentially many others. I established the Grace Foundation, named for my grandmother, dedicated to supporting children in the foster care system, particularly those who had been adopted and then rejected or mistreated by their adoptive families. The foundation would provide not just financial assistance for education and basic needs, but also psychological support, mentorship programs, and legal advocacy. I committed $75 million as initial funding and pledged to personally oversee its operations alongside my duties at Secure Vault. During the planning stages, I reconnected with Kim, my former roommate, who now practiced as a clinical psychologist specializing in family trauma. Over coffee, I shared my vision for the foundation and my personal connection to its mission. "I never knew," she said, visibly moved by my story. "All those years we lived together, I had no idea what you'd been through." "I was good at hiding it," I admitted. "I didn't want anyone's pity." "It's not pity to let people care about you, Madison," she said gently. "It's human connection, something I think you've been denying yourself for too long." Her words stayed with me, prompting a period of deep reflection. I had built walls to protect myself from further rejection, but those same walls had kept out the genuine connections I craved. My success, my wealth, even my charitable work, none of it could substitute for authentic human relationships. True to my word, I established the education funds for Connor and Lily. Brittany accepted them with a stiff email of thanks. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was a small bridge to the next generation, a chance to break the cycle of emotional neglect that had characterized my own childhood. 3 months after my family's visit, I joined a support group for adults who had experienced family estrangement. Sitting in a circle with others who had similar stories, I found a level of understanding I hadn't experienced before. These were people who knew firsthand the particular pain of being rejected by those who should have loved them unconditionally. "Family isn't always blood," said one woman during a particularly powerful session. "Family is who loves you when you need it most." This simple statement crystallized something I had been learning gradually over the years. Looking around at the lives I had touched and those who had touched mine, I realized I had built a family of choice, one far more nurturing than the one I had been born into. There was Dr. Liu, who had believed in me when I was just a nervous young woman at a tech workshop. Marcus, who had taken a chance on my ideas when 32 other investors had said no. My executive team at SecureVault, who had stood by me through the company's growth and challenges. The children benefiting from my foundation's programs, whose letters and artwork now decorated a wall in my home office. 6 months after the confrontation with my biological family, I decided to host a gathering at my Beverly Hills estate. Not a formal charity gala or business function, but a simple celebration of connection. I invited everyone who had become important to me over the years, from Dr. Liu and her family to my first roommates in San Francisco, from Marcus and his wife to members of my support group. The house and gardens were filled with laughter and conversation, with people who knew my story and accepted me as I was, flaws and all. As I looked around at these diverse individuals who had chosen to be part of my life, I felt a sense of belonging I had searched for my entire life. Late in the evening, I found a quiet moment alone on Grandma Grace's bench. The sapphire ring caught the light from the garden lanterns, sparkling with the same warmth I remembered in her eyes. I could almost hear her voice. "True family is about love, not blood." She had been right all along. Blood ties may be the beginning of family, but they're not its definition. Family is built through love, respect, and choices made day after day to show up for one another. It can't be measured by DNA or legal documents, but by the depth of connection and the safety found in each other's presence. My journey from rejected child to successful businesswoman have been driven partly by a desire to prove my worth to those who had discarded me. But the true transformation came when I realized that my worth had never been in question, only their ability to see it. The family that had once defined me by my absence had lost their power over my happiness. In their place was a community of chosen family, people who had earned their place in my life through their actions, not their blood relation. As I sat in my garden, surrounded by the life I had built and the people who had helped me build it, I felt at peace in a way I never had before. The wounds of the past would always be part of my story, but they no longer defined my future. The sapphire ring on my finger was no longer just a reminder of the one person from my biological family who had truly loved me. It had become a symbol of the truth I had learned through pain and triumph. that we all have the power to create our own definitions of family, to build connections based on genuine love rather than obligation. For anyone out there who has felt the sting of family rejection, who has wondered if something is inherently wrong with them because the people who should love them most have turned away, I want you to know this. Your worth is not determined by those who failed to see it. You deserve love. You deserve belonging. And you have the power to create a family of the heart that will cherish you exactly as you are. Have you ever had to create your own family when your biological one let you down? What helped you heal from family rejection? Share your stories in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if it resonated with you. Thank you for being part of this journey with me, and remember, sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones we choose for ourselves.